Greetings, this is Misael Bay, aka Warlock Asylum, coming at you once again with another episode of the OG Den with my brother Keenan Booker, aka the God 720. And today we're going to be on live, we're on the live wire, and we're just making an anthology of subjects that people could research. It can give them a platform to do some further research. And today we're going to be talking about occult serial killers, I think more from the medieval era, up in, like around the 1600s. And just in general, what that encompasses, um, me and Seven was just talking because I was giving a little background on some of the stuff I was experiencing um, as a shaman in those worlds and stuff like that. And man, it gets crazy. But when I got into that, I never really realized that at one time, that's what controlled the underworld. Like when I was coming up, you couldn't even get a pack of tarot cards. That was like, unless you went through like something like the dark market or something. Now it's on, all this other kind of stuff. So in the occult world itself, you have two different type of communities. You have one that's a little bit more raw, and they're not necessarily evil, but they just don't like the fact that the sciences are being exploited on some commercial stuff. So like when we go into like Barnes and Nobles and stuff, we look at that stuff as like paper machete or popcorn stuff. You know what I'm saying? As far as like the intensity of study and just practice, you know what I'm saying? On the other side of the coin, it depends on what you're messing with, because then you have like occult wars, you know what I'm saying, where people, a priest may be getting a lot of money in a neighborhood. Some dude don't like that, who's a priest in another neighborhood, and it's the same stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't want to be on that edge of it. I'd rather be more on the upper notch on it, but it does get like that. I remember my cousin came. He came from Chicago too. When he came, he was like telling me a lot of crazy stories. But he came over one Thanksgiving and we were drinking, whatever, whatever. And I knew we was having a certain type of eclipse, and something kept telling me like, I don't think this is gonna be a good weekend. So we were like a little bit tipsy, but I could hear the neighbors arguing 2 floors down, but they were having a party. So I'm thinking like, some girls, they just having a party, they just arguing, whatever. So next thing you know, you hear it break out the apartment into the hallway, the staircase, and one of the girls like, I can get you killed, I can get you killed. And I'm like, nah, it doesn't sound too good. So the next morning I went to work, and it was I could see the glass door was shattered because it was like a 6th floor apartment building. And I was like, this is not going to be good. But we're going into these eclipse. So the following week, that Friday, I hear this girl, somebody help me. Somebody help me. She's crying, 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 whatever. And I didn't know what happened. But I knew that the girl that owned the apartment where the party was happening was a good friend of the girls that was crying in the street. And what happened was they had went to this party in the Bronx, which for someone who's a mother is kind of weird for me. But anyway, she steps out into the parking lot and a bullet grazes her head, doesn't even penetrate, and she falls into the arm of this friend, and she's out of here. So the woman, when she was like, crying and stuff in the street, whatever. So I didn't know any of this happened. So I went to work one day. I came back, and my roommate at the time, he told me what happened. They said they think the cousin had something to do with it. So I'm like, well, why don't they arrest the cousin? And then I realized, nah, it's that brouhaha. They can't really go after that. And that happens a lot in certain areas of New York City. You know what I'm saying? And so like it's I've seen people taken out of here from stuff. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I'm seeing people taken out of here from stuff. So like I know stuff to protect myself or whatever. But for a while I had to kind of separate myself from that to actually see what it was. You know what I'm saying? And then come back around and see why those things happen, which I probably will get to, but we can get to in another video or whatever. But it's real. And I didn't even know the implications, because some of the characters you meet, who knows what they could be into. You know what I'm saying? Like when you talk about occult serial killers, like you can.
Oh yeah, well, especially in a place like New York. If, you're in the medieval,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not. When you go into everything east of I'd say maybe about Ohio.
Hmm.
Ohio is village land. So
Hmm.
Philly is the last stronghold of hardcore medieval. Okay,
Yeah.
going from the east to the west. Going south, I'd probably say South Carolina or North Carolina is probably
Hmm.
going to be its stronghold. Going southwest, maybe about Virginia is going to end. When we're talking about the spirituality and real hardcore baseline of what uh, occultism is and what medieval is. So yeah, y'all live in it. So there's a lot of weirdos around you that
Yeah.
you don't know who's dealing with what or what's going on with what. And then a lot of those areas are also cities built on top of cities.
Yeah.
So you got, you got a old version of New York that is still operating.
Hmm.
You know, um, you have an old version of DC. There's an old version of Baltimore. There's an old version of Boston. There's an old
Yeah.
version of, Buffalo, Rochester, Vermont, New Connecticut. I mean, all of that.
Yeah.
New Hampshire and Connecticut. All of that, all of those in those areas are cities on top of cities.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot of litigation that occurred in the old world of America, not necessarily the quote the super old world is what I mean, the ancient civilizations. We're not going there right now. 1700s and 1800s and all of the activity that went on in that time period,
Yeah.
you have to understand that to make things alive, you know, when you resurrect death back into life, which can be done in a lot of different forms. It was
Hmm.
done during these time periods of the construction of these old cities. Okay. It was
Hmm.
done with cornerstones. It was done with a lot of different sacrifices of Indians. You got the Irish, the Italians, you had the African slaves, you had the Chinese situations over there in those regions. All of this happened during the Opium Wars. The opium came over to America. The gangs were going on. It's a lot of stuff that was going on that still is going on in that
Hmm.
same essence of operation, even though you're living in 2020 in the same city with new buildings. It's
Yeah.
sort of hard to explain,
Yeah.
but it's there. For instance, the Amish.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm pretty sure you go 200 miles per hour of where you're located,
Hmm.
and you got the Amish there. Okay,
Oh yeah. 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 Yeah.
right. You see, that's a different time zone
Yeah.
when we understand time as a dimension. You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? They
Yeah.
have locked a time period as their dimension and carried it until now,
Yeah.
which
And they,
which,
yeah, they have a
which
deep,
2020. Go ahead.
yeah, they have a deep history too with slavery in America. Like a lot of times when I'm going over the records, a lot of the records, and trying to find people with Quaker records, Quaker meetings and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So they have like a lot of them intermarried with African slaves and stuff, or had children at least. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the marriages, because a lot of times we hear about forced rapes and stuff, but a lot of times they were willing, it's just they couldn't be public about it. So, it was like a side family, stuff like that or whatever. But I just want to inject that, like a lot of times in the Amish community, when I'm doing like ancestral research, a lot of that stuff pops up with them because they had such a tight knit community. It was closed. Them and the Mormons, you hear a lot about in the ancestral world. It's huge because that's part of their spirituality. So it's um it's definitely important that they kept those records. You know what I'm saying? But I
Mm-hmm.
agree with you. Like when you in New York, it's sort of like you could access a lot of things because 10% of it is the city and the 90% of it is farmland. You know what I'm saying? So once you get out of the city, it's like you in the trees, mountains, it's a whole other region, most of it. But the five boroughs are so connected, so populated, and there's so many different things going on. It's like a world with beyond worlds. But I do know, like in Harlem, a lot of times with the cats on 125th Street, most of that area was like hoodoo places. And that area was like burial grounds, and it was like a lot of mysticism and magic going there. So when you in Harlem, you could feel like this shadow. It's weird, like over I know you've been to Harlem, but you could feel this shadow, like you could feel it's live, but you also feel like this other element, what I'm saying, in Harlem. And there's certain locations like that around the city, what I'm saying? But it's really, like you mentioned, there's a lot of stuff hidden in those worlds,
Oh
man.
yeah, yeah. Like I was saying, like I mentioned in the prior video, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but the hermetic sciences and making things alive, making a gargoyle alive, or making a building alive,
Mm-hmm.
making a car alive, making a stop sign alive.
Mm-hmm.
You can make it alive
Mm-hmm.
where it will move,
Yeah, yeah.
And this is why there's hieroglyphs. And then they also have another form of writing,
Mm-hmm.
but the hieroglyphs are for motion,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to understand the element of making things alive.
Mm-hmm.
So during this whole time period, 1700, 1800, a lot of things were made alive. The
Mm-hmm.
cathedrals, the buildings, and all of that, and they're done through a lot of ritualistic sacrifice practices. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Now, and that's where it stems us down to the occult serial killers. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you had a lot of serial killers during those times. Why? Because there was no real follow-up
Mm-hmm.
or discovery, or there wasn't good investigation
Mm-hmm.
resources like we have now. Now, during the medieval times, they had different ways of detecting that somebody murdered somebody else. It was first the word was murder, and it's Murther. And I do believe both the word mother and murder stems from this word murther. A
Mm-hmm.
murderer is what they call it, right? Now, when somebody kills somebody, they would bring usually the weapon would be tainted, and nobody would touch the weapon because it is tainted with evil act,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And with the devil's deed. And then they make the person touch the wound
Mm-hmm.
where they were stabbed at or bludgeoned at, and it would bleed more if the person touched it. Yeah, that's how they usually detected for somebody to do a murder. There was other ways, and there was other evidence, but courts, when court was everywhere, law was everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
investigation was
Mm-hmm.
everywhere when it came down to murderous situations. When it came down to serial killers, which were rampant, there's many stories of many different types of serial killers all throughout
Mm-hmm.
Europe. Oh, Europe. Now, one of them is in a movie that I would like to refer to called Perfume, the
Mm-hmm.
story of a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
You need to watch this movie. This movie is a work of art. Okay.
Wow.
And it also shows one element on how they were remastering
Mm-hmm.
sciences that Egypt already mastered.
Mm-hmm.
You see, if a culture is going to take on the sciences of another culture, they're going to be mastering them in their cultural understanding. But it's still
Gotcha.
a replication, you see. And that
Mm-hmm.
movie is based on perfumes,
Mm-hmm.
and how perfume is made and how perfume is made in ancient Egypt. That movie is phenomenal. So go get that.
I got to see that one. Perfume, right?
Yeah. Dustin Hoffman is
Oh,
the
he's
actor.
always good, man. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Dustin Hoffman. He played his ass off in that movie. So
Everything from The
Perfume.
Graduate on down. You know what I'm saying? It's a
Yeah,
classic.
that movie is actually a money religion list because the medieval is very descriptive in that movie. There's a folklore tone to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's ancient alchemy to the movie. The understanding of life and death is in the movie. The movie was so heavy that they didn't even bring it to the theater.
Wow.
But it definitely had $1 million budget, and
Wow.
it's a headliner too. It's a headliner.
Wow.
There's nothing but headline actors in it because the script is phenomenal. The movie is
Yeah.
fucking.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I just brought him up as an example.
Mm-hmm.
The serial killers that I was running into, because you run
Okay.
into the serial killer, even though in the volume 2, the occult serial killers are before the werewolf section.
Mm-hmm.
Werewolf is a hot subject. So
Yeah.
going through the lycanthropy and the werewolfism, then you start running into the occult serial killers, or
Mm-hmm.
serial killers with high body count. And that's where it stems in, that's where it falls into occultism practices, that you kill that many people. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
So yeah, because these individuals are 500 plus. I don't think anybody in that section has a lower body count than 500. The
That's a
highest
lot of
body
people.
count, yeah, the highest body count was at 1,000. And that's why I had to mention the werewolfism, because it's attached with the ravaging element,
Mm-hmm.
the uncontrollable ravaging. You see, animals are allowed to ravage because that is law in
Mm-hmm.
their world. You see, there is no police officer that handcuffs the lion for eating the Bambi. You see,
Now, when you say occult serial killers, just for the audience that's listening, what would you say would be a distinguishing factor from an occult serial killer to a serial killer, let's say, that just like killed 10 people or whatever? What would be the difference?
because of they're both one and the same, but they're not.
Mm-hmm.
The one is doing it
I would think one would be
for,
doing it for psychological reasons, where another one might be doing it for some sort of power, right? I would.
yeah, everything is but everything is psychological. So
Mm-hmm.
both of them are doing them for psychological reasons.
Gotcha.
Now, what is driving the psychological reason, and what is the goal? What is the desire
Mm-hmm.
after attaining the reasoning that
Mm-hmm.
you're committing the act? So the
Yeah.
thing is that you have individuals who say, okay, I'm gonna get into ancient books and draw circles, and we're gonna drink blood and do all of that, la 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 la.
Mm-hmm.
These are individuals who are socially lost.
Mm-hmm.
These are individuals who are trying to prove something to themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have your true arcane.
Mm-hmm.
Your true arcane are those who have been through experiences throughout the course of life that they didn't necessarily complain about.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
these
Wow.
individuals do understand justice. These
Okay.
individuals are silent. They don't talk. You know, um, these are the natural artists.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean is that when we say a person has a demon inside of them, what you're really saying is that their nervous system is wired a certain way because
Mm-hmm.
of the amount of experiences that they've had,
Mm-hmm.
which allows them, and their mind permits the acts that they commit.
Mm-hmm.
So that also deals with the smell. Like I was reading in a book the other day, the doctor said, don't smell this smell called Ceridivine, I think it is,
Mm-hmm.
or carabine or something like that. I don't quote me,
Okay.
but it's some chemical he mentioned that is actually a replication of rotting flesh. He said,
Wow.
don't, he said, if you ever get a chance, don't smell this stuff. You might have bad dreams. He said, you'll have nightmares. You
Mm-hmm.
will have nightmares. And
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So if I raise you around 2, 3 years old for, right when you're born, and you're sleeping in the midst of human feces all the time, you witness dead rabbits and dead animals around you, by 10, 15 years old, you're going to be producing those type of things. It's locked
Yeah.
into your unconscious mind. You
Yeah.
see, these are your arcane ones. You see,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that they get raped by their uncles. They'll be doing crazy drugs. And these are your true werewolves that are the ones that come from the deep line, what you want to call Visigoth, God,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
Gauls. You see, yeah, and these motherfuckers can drink blood out of skull, without a
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah.
you know.
It's crazy.
And yeah, and That's the Jason Voorhees that you saw. That was Michael Myers. Those are silent. They're silent.
Yeah.
You see, yeah. And then you
Yeah.
got the fake ones who are trying to be like Marilyn Manson,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, they end up doing real acts too, but their acts are not from the heart, shall I say.
Mm-hmm. How much is, like, I guess the turnout of like occult serial killers ranges a lot in how much where society is at the time, and the percentage. You know what I mean? Like, I imagine in every generation there's somebody who's going to have a tragic upbringing, right? But I think, like, in certain societies, it may have been, like you mentioned, the medieval times, a little bit more, because I never really even heard of somebody with a body count of 1,000 people. That's a lot of people. You know what I'm saying?
Well, brother, I'm gonna tell you right
I
now.
mean, I know people who have like 100. I mean, you know, like there's people who run around. I imagine now, you know,
The highest one they just found in America was a black male in LA who went around driving around, putting prostitutes out of business, and he did that for 90 women. You know,
wow.
he confessed to them. And that's another thing. Like I said, the silent ones, you know, they hang around in the truck driver realm. They hang around, you know, and then, like I said, putting people out of the misery. Some people are in misery, and some others live in the realm of the soul where they can look at you and see your misery. And there's just some type of silent psychic communication that permits the act. And, you know, yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, I remember my mentor, he told me there's two real people in the world. He said there's saints and there's serial killers. You know what I'm saying? And I guess they both serve the same cause. Some people heal, and some people, you know, take some refuse, whatever it is, how tragic it is, away. And it's just, man, it's just crazy because, you know,
Well, yeah, go ahead.
you
Go
know,
ahead.
like some of these people, you know what I mean? Like when I was coming up, I wasn't really exposed. I had to kind of, I mean, I had to kind of, you know, upbringing everyone else did, but it was just, you know, like when I heard about like Charles Manson and, you know, Son of Sam and the dog telling this dude what to, you know, what to do or whatever, it was really, murder wasn't a popular thing at that time. You know what I'm saying? It happened, you know, but it just wasn't as popular, I think, in entertainment as it is today. So just before we move on, you know, further with the subject, because I'm gonna pull some things out of the book.
Oh, go ahead. I got mine right here. We pull it out. Yeah.
What 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 I what would you think as far as the entertainment that features a lot of murder today and the effects that it could have on creating a serial killer? Or is that just like, you know, people say, oh, you know, it's just a, you know, it's just a movie. Like there's some things I watch and there's some things I just have a limit, you know what I'm saying? Just because I'm sensitive, you know, like, so I just kind of like, nah, I don't really want to watch that, you know what I'm saying?
Man's expectation of female activity, which 9 times out of 10 is usually a psychic demand, as they don't have the courage to verbalize it, is what usually drives the so-called serial killer is the sexual urge.
Oh, wow.
The majority of serial killers that are documented in America are homosexuals. When it comes to, yeah, and that's what you see when it comes to the girl that's found in the pond as well. Now, popularity behind murder is just the expose. It's always been, as you know, in the 80s and the 70s, like I said, the true driver routes, nobody knows. You know, there's always been the runaway girl, you know, that's never found. We've seen the faces on the milk cartons. We've seen the faces on the billboards when we walked in front of Walmart. Remember when Walmart opened up about 10 years ago? And they had those Had all the children on the wall right there before you walked in. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been with us for a very long time.
Yeah.
There's great werewolves that run around in America. They snatch.
Now, from your experience, because that is something to segue into some of the stuff in the book, um, because in the Southwest, like in New York, there's killings based on maybe gang violence. Some of the stuff is just stupid stuff. But a lot of it is, it's fierce because it's so common, today than it was in previous times, just over stupid things. But there's also, this area of child abduction, things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? And it's never really come out other than talk about the deep state, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. What possibly taking children is all about. You know what I'm saying? It's actually like a
I
horrific
have a
subject.
DVD. I
Hmm.
have a DVD called CIA and Satanism on my site.
Hmm.
Let me DVDs. And dude is on the DVD. He was high level FBI
Hmm.
and he resigned.
Hmm.
And he was talking about how in California
Hmm.
they discovered a school
Hmm.
that was on the coast on a beach bank.
Hmm.
And during the class, the kids would drop their kids off at school. And in first period, or right after breakfast, they were led through hallways to go through the bottom of the school and go out of a tunnel, get on a helicopter and fly over here like an hour, 20 minutes away to another
Yeah.
little island.
Yeah. I heard
And
something about that.
they was getting down all day long with all types of ritualistic shit. And then they bring them back, and the kids be back in the car by by the time 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, the parents come pick them up, and it's nothing. So what happened is these kids started bringing some of this weird ass activity inside the house, and the
Yeah.
parents were like, "What the fuck are you doing? And where the fuck you learn that shit from?"
Yeah.
So then they brought in the feds and all this other shit.
Oh
Now,
man.
yeah. So there's rules to the game. There's rules to life. And the
Yeah.
number one rule to life is your responsibility.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's where big game is being played. Um, as soon as you put your intelligence of your children into somebody else's hands, they have allowance to do whatever the fuck they want to.
Yeah.
And that is the bottom line to the litigation.
Mm.
Um, Nobody has the responsibility to teach your children any form of science.
Hmm.
If it wasn't for the system that we have now, would we know any sciences? Is there enough proof amongst our development and our conditions right now that
Hmm.
state we love our children enough to have progression?
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we haven't been getting taught by our parents, and they haven't been educating themselves for generations and generations. But we will sit here and argue that we had gold pyramids,
Hmm.
right? In the ancient time, we was
Yeah.
great king this and great queen that. You see, but when it looks at the condition of us right now, and we still got the same blood, but they did this and they did that. No,
Yeah.
you can't. It's called responsibility. So you're
Mm.
not, you know, bringing a responsibility upon yourself to understand your environment. I didn't know the environment. Elijah
Yeah.
Muhammad wasn't telling me enough.
Yeah.
All the Malachi Yorks and all of them, they weren't telling me enough
Yeah.
about my existence. My mind was completely saturated over religion this, religion that, religion
Hmm.
this, because I don't see a Jesus on a dollar bill that I pay a rent with. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and I always knew that there was monetary in the situation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all the religious nonsense. And then when I went through Black studies, it was too vague.
Hmm.
It wasn't. in order chronologically. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it was built backwards.
Yeah.
All of them had got all their information and studied from Caucasians,
Yeah. Yeah.
Caucasian schools. So, and I don't have nothing wrong with Caucasian studies, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, I dealt with the in-depth areas of it. So, but I'm not gonna have a modern day
Yeah.
European who's running back to his groups at 3 o'clock in the morning, saying whatever and trying to control whatever
Yeah.
situation. No, I want to talk to your great, 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 great grandfather, and I'm
Yeah.
find him. You understand what I'm
That's
saying?
why, like, when you look at these forums, I'm not going to really say any names, but when I did go through like initiation into the world of shamanism, I used to always wonder, like, man, why these groups, like online and stuff, they talking all this consciousness. First, they don't have any Africans on it. And then second, they don't have any people who are like the witch doctor on it. Because their world is not under the European scope. You know what I'm saying? So when I went through that school, it just immediately divorced my mind. And I wasn't thinking about, I came up like with Afrocentric studies when I was a bit younger. And, I was reading books by Chancellor Williams, all this sort of stuff. And then
Yeah.
after that, I was like, when I got to Elijah stuff, one day I sat and thought, like, man, instead of me memorizing what somebody says, maybe I should just go out and learn the Hermetic laws because that seems to be ancient alchemy. So I said, let me work with that. And that's what kind of led that to. But once I got into that, I didn't revisit the world of those speakers for a long time. But there was some things I did learn in shamanism that was identical to what these dudes were saying. But it wasn't in the context of um, how they put it out on the religious context. It was more in a scientific way in that world. And speak about, because we were talking about this earlier with the jinn, as you will find out, has a lot of connections with the Black race. Actually, most of the people from Zoroaster, long before colonial times, thought that's what the world thinks. The parentage of the Black race is the jinn. So what they did with religion is they inverted the scale. But if you read, not to try to, most people when they read, the problem is that they always try to associate themselves with the good guy. But if you associate yourself with the bad guy, you can find the issues of the author, right? So even myself, like I write books, you write books, but if I take the position of the bad guy, I can see what's in the author's mind. You see what I'm saying? So it's the same thing like with the Bible, the Torah, all that kind of stuff. So when after I got initiated, I was the same thing like you're doing. I was looking through certain things because you don't really have a formal school. Like you have the mentorship, but there's really no school that really teaches you the fullness of what alchemy could do or occultism could do. So you learn, you see things that the average person doesn't see because the spirits speak to you through people or through events. Just like you say, like, yo, man, this happened to him. I'm watching this movie. That's just how it comes, through an epiphany. And then you start distinguishing the epiphany from your regular way of thinking. Now, I think in the aspects of the keeping on the topic of serial killers, I'm going to touch on it briefly and then come back around to it. They probably get their epiphanies from definitely like a grounded zero source. You know what I'm saying? But after a while, like when I look at certain books, I see something totally different. For example, you look at the Bible, right? So you look in the Bible, and first thing I figured out, like, okay, Abraham was a Chaldean. So let me play cop and do a background check on Chaldeans and see how much he pulled out of Chaldea, you know what I'm saying, before he came up with this whole thing. So you start looking at it, then first thing you start seeing, okay, the Garden of Eden was made in the east of Eden. Okay, so all of Eden wasn't a garden, but just the east of it. Cain kills Abel, talking about serial killers, and where he's sent to the east of Eden. So why would you send some dude that just killed his brother, you give him lifetime protection, and then you send him to the east of, that's how I look at it. You see what I'm saying? And so when I sit down, talk with these dudes, they're thinking whatever. So then I find out that before the abolitionist movement, the children of the serpent in Genesis 3:15 were always perceived as indigenous people, right? The children of the serpent was because the Pharaoh had a serpent piece on top of his head. Now,
Oh yeah, well, the children of the serpent, yeah, that is also a Lamia reference, and Lamia is also Medusa reference.
yes, yes,
Labia,
yes,
Libya, Lamia is
yeah,
the word. But to bounce off what you were saying with the level of intelligence when it comes to serial killers, like they always say the Ted Bundy, and, and
oh
Jeffrey
yeah, yeah,
Dahmer.
yeah, yeah. Jeffrey Dahmer, that was crazy.
What's the other one?
Son of Sam.
No, your guy in Chicago that was dressed like a clown. Um, I forgot who that
So,
name was.
well,
Huh?
you had who was it? It was a
John
couple.
Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy.
Okay,
John Wayne Gacy.
there was
So
Perry too. There was he was around the drug world, but he put a lot of people on the ground. What was that dude's name? Perry that was hanging out.
Perry
Yeah.
Mason, you talking about
Yes.
up
Yes.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but see, now here's the thing.
Hmm.
He just shot people.
Right. 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 It wasn't like he was going in differently. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we're
Okay.
talking about here is art. What we're talking about here is carving the skin off. We're talking about, resewing the
Some
limb,
deeper stuff. Yeah. That's what I
Yeah,
wanted to get
we're
out
talking about,
so that people know that, like, this is different than someone in the street shooting somebody. You know what I'm
like
saying?
did you hear about that building that they found in Arizona where they were selling human body parts? They walked in and said that somebody sewed the head of a little girl onto a 6-foot man. I thought that was kind of funny.
That's
But I
crazy,
mean,
man. Yeah, it's
yeah,
crazy.
that's what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
because
Those
it's sad
individuals.
because how people like uh abducted and just praying to some other thing, and I guess people, I remember
Do you
watching.
know why? Do you know why?
I think it's like psychological. You know what I'm saying?
No, it bounces back to 3 words, brother.
Hmm.
The white man's burden.
Hmm.
You see, at the end of the day, there's a lot of work in this, on this planet that's been put together.
Hmm.
You can take your children to the Six Flags and get the cotton candy.
Hmm.
You can buy your wife the big blue diamond, take her on the honey, right?
Hmm.
You can buy little Susie the Corvette when she graduates. This is all work. This is all a lot of stress.
Hmm.
A lot of stress. The majority of the people on this planet
Hmm.
do not provide. They will not provide.
Hmm.
They will not study. They will not create art. They will not control art. They will not develop art. They will not conceal art, reveal art. They will not hold art dear to them. They will not cherish it. They will perish.
Hmm.
You understand?
Yeah.
They're beggars. They're vagabonds.
Yeah.
Right. They're
Crazy, man.
worthless. You understand? Do you
Yeah.
understand? You see? They're
Yeah. Cause.
drinking the Fanta. They treat. What do they feed their children? They feed their children the top ramen noodle.
Mm.
Huh? Did they walk past the vegetable section to do this? They
Yeah.
did do this, correct?
Yeah.
Right? There is the grandma who hits the child upside the head consistently for saying the word wrong.
Mm.
Right? This is what our civilization is. This is what the mind of a serial killer is. The mind of a serial killer is to exterminate the worthless because you
Mm-hmm.
are a waste of the most finite design in this existence,
Mm-hmm.
which is human.
The saint and the serial killer.
You are human.
Yeah.
Exactly. You are
Yeah.
human.
Yeah.
And you are to represent human space to the highest notion of divinity.
Mm-hmm.
Is this not what the deer does? When the deer stands at the top of the cliff, the stag on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Get that stag on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
He's at the top of the mountain. He glares in the sun, pokes out his chest. Is this not what the silverback gorilla does?
Mm.
Show me a creature on this being that does not perfect and contain its position as if it is divine. Does the birds not show their colors when they dance for mating purposes? Huh?
Yes.
Do they not? Do they not excite the women?
Yeah.
This is what our existence is composed of.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you find waste,
Mm-hmm.
then I will be the trash man.
Mm-hmm.
I will put you out of your misery, since you think workload and intelligence and common courtesy is too much work to do.
Yeah.
So we're just going to shit on ourselves, piss on ourselves, throw up on ourselves, and shoot each other over road rage incidents. You see, you are worthless.
Mm-hmm.
You have no name. You made no name for yourself. You made no name for your children. You have no point of existence.
Mm-hmm.
You are making existence more of a problem for me when I go to the store. What did you say? Go ahead.
So they're more cleaning up the radical elements in human society that have no real purpose.
Radical.
Right.
Let's use that in a scientific realm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Radical bacteria has to get, you are a threat. You are posing a threat to the other amoeba, correct?
Right. Hold on 1 second. Let me just say this. As a break, we're not supporting, serial killing. We're just in character of a perspective. Because I have to say that because I don't want people,
No, I know. No, you can feel the energy coming off of me. I know exactly what's going on.
Because like when I was really deep into the grind, I definitely knew what the meaning of what my mentor has. I knew exactly what it meant, like exactly the ways to healing, just like you're saying, like you have people still survival of the fittest is the highest law. And it's always going to play itself out in a paradigm that appears to be organized. You know what I'm saying? But really, when you look at the pen that humans are kept in psychologically, they rebel against it. You know what I'm saying? They rebel against it. And, it's definitely has a lot to do with that. I give you an example, not to cut your wisdom, but I'm going to finish this and I'll let you go.
No, go ahead.
Is we crime has been going up in New York over the past couple of weeks. And people are like, man, crime is going up. But that was something that I already knew because when we did a Reiki marathon. And we did Reiki marathon to keep it light, just to focus on healing, the coronavirus situation or whatever. But in the play of all of that, there were a couple of nights where I had apparently very strong lucid dreams, and I saw like disincarnate people. And at first I was like, man, but then I realized these were people who were trapped in the middle world, because I have to get into this to segue into something just to give you a pure shamanic side on a serial killer note, who were trapped. So what happens, a lot of people don't know this, even with gangs that we see in the literal world, if you talk to any shaman, they come from the spiritual world in the sense that some disincarnated spirits don't have that force guiding them back. So what happens was, it could be like a deceased prostitute or something like that. The spirit has its own gang element. And these spirits will be like, they'll harvest people. Like, you could be down with us, you can get something to eat, we operate through certain traditions, like whatever, where people think that we're this deity and we operate like that, we get fed. But if you want to join us, you got to do something. So when you see a massive amount of killing or dying in a certain area, not too shortly after that, you're going to see a rise in crime because there's no one doing any banishings, possibly the Catholic Church. But other than that, like the regular Christian church, they're not doing no exorcisms. So they're just talking. So this is why you see like a rise in crime in New York City. You know what I mean? No, they're not
Yo, let me
doing it.
put that
Yeah,
out there.
yeah,
Yo, let me put that out there. It's
yeah,
funny you said that.
yeah.
Exorcisms are now allowed.
Mhm,
Watch. They'll
mhm,
start coming. Now that I've said that, watch. You'll start seeing them pop up at the
mhm,
news. Oh, yeah. And another thing I have to say while we're on the wire,
mhm,
uh, Coronis has given birth,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
So the day is done. She's now a crow.
Oh
Coronis
wow.
is a crow.
Okay.
Right. She has given birth. Dead this issue. There is
Mhm.
no more falsehood or illusion. I had to
Gotcha.
say that.
Gotcha. Yeah, 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 definitely. It's the time has
That was
passed.
something
It's just a
completely
cleanup
else.
time. Yeah,
Something
it's just a
completely different
cleanup
going on.
time and just the dead souls that are lingering. But
Yeah,
it's
I had to. Well, that was actually connected to a whole nother system, but it's current right now, and I got to put it into space
yeah,
because my
yeah,
shit hit the
yeah.
atmosphere.
And
But the
and that's
other
why you hear
layer,
about the Russians and too and all this crazy stuff because the time is over. You know what I mean? So,
right,
you know, it's
right,
you know, it's 2021 will probably be a takeoff, but for now, it's just a lot of melee and it's man, it's crazy. Just when you thought something, because for us in New York, it was like 9/11 was crazy. It didn't really affect a lot of the world. It did in a way, but didn't. But for here, it was just like, man, it was crazy. You know what I'm saying? So to see
yeah,
something that's even more, just in the idea of it, like, wow, you know what I'm saying? It's one of those callings that
right.
certain secret societies talk about before something is moved. Because one of the things I still have to analyze is because I had two sort of teachings. I learned the ideology of virtue, that virtue is your only salvation, right? I learned that ideology, but then I also learned the ideology that deities, which some people consider vampires themselves, like in order for them to get something going, or order for man to evolve to the next process, it always goes through a purge in society. World War I and II led to the purge of us to be able to enjoy VCRs and computers. You know what I'm saying? It's always like this purge in this world altar before a new age comes about. So we can consider now like the 90s age is sort of fading away amongst these children. They know, they listen to the songs like I used to listen to Aretha Franklin and Marvin, but in a way, something else is birthing. You know what I'm saying? That will be beyond that. So we have the robots, we have the cryptocurrency, we have the 5G, we have a new platform that's artificial intelligence that's about to come into being. You see what I'm saying? Where this will be more like the Mad Max ending. You know what I'm saying? Like the Mad Max, the 80s.
Um,
But the break
a
that,
lot of that is in the palm of my hand, and I
mhm,
really don't want to be too
talk
deep
about it, yeah.
into that. Yeah, because there's a lot of things that I got to figure out right now. That's
Mhm,
just, including with China and
yeah.
the events that's going on with America. I'm in
Yeah,
between.
it's crazy, man. That stuff is
So,
like, but that's a whole other conversation and still some
yeah,
more stuff to
I
cover.
gotta, yeah, I'm in the middle of the matrix, and it works in a very weird system. So I
Yeah.
have to be very keen on what I say and how I
Hmm.
say it pertaining to these subjects because things will happen very next day. It's
Hmm.
very quick. So, but to go back to the serial killers, there was one thing I wanted to say.
Hmm.
Um, this book, The Ethereal Law, is my dissertation. These are
Hmm.
my dissertation of the medieval, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of people like these in the book. It's funny, I opened right up to
Hmm.
them.
Hmm.
Mephistopheles.
Mm.
And
Oh,
my
it's like
magic
serious
squares,
magic squares, yeah.
there's magic squares in there. When I started writing these, a lot of people were asking me if I was at serial killer intelligence. Okay.
Hmm.
One thing about serial killer intelligence is that there is there is a level where there's no more words,
Hmm.
and the words become the air, and it's
Hmm.
just letters everywhere, and you're walking amongst nothing but carcasses, you know.
Well, the
And
thing
that,
is, I think that the
no, I
extent
mean
of,
there is a watch what I just said though.
okay.
There's a level of intelligence that you get to,
Hmm.
that you have an existence, that you understand about existence where intelligence turns into that scene
Mm-hmm.
where you're walking amongst nothing but carcasses and it's just
Mm-hmm.
words flying around you.
Mm-hmm.
There's an end to that field too, which I've already passed that zone.
Yeah, yeah.
But that zone is trapped in Divine too. You
Mm-hmm.
see, one thing you gotta understand about these books is that there is a mass power in them. And you have to sort of be knighted to even get to them.
Mm-hmm.
I will state, you finish them. They're written in 3 different styles, so you don't have to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
It's written in the style for you to reference. It's written in the style for you to just spot read, and then it's also written in a style for you to read from cover to cover.
Mm-hmm.
If you read it from cover to cover, which it is designed specifically for the mind on the way it is written, cover to cover, you will be great beast at the end of that. Yeah.
That's a good thing, man, because that's a tremendous work. Like I didn't really catch up to it, but I was, you probably saw I was finishing up a book recently, and I was at 300 pages, but then the 300 pages is like 5x8 type size book. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, and then we had to do a show last week. I'm like, wait a minute, this dude put out 3 volumes of 600-page books that are 8x11. That's like 1,200 5x8 pages. I was like,
Yeah.
that's a lot of work. I mean, I don't care how it's, like not, like in respect. I don't know how like it's organized in the sense that, but that's a lot of work. You know what I'm saying? Anytime
Oh
you're touching
yeah,
like 1,200.
it was all day and all night. I
Yeah.
will say that.
If you touching, because I know how it is. Like you on a hot subject, and it's like, yo, man, let me get this through, and you just keep.
Well, there's a multitude of different subjects, and it's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't the people who have read, I haven't met anybody who's gotten past volume 2 yet, and I understand why.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think I think the level of
if you make it past the plague section, no, if you make it past the werewolf section and finish volume 2, you have to complete volume 3.
Mm-hmm.
Because after the plague section of volume 2, you can literally feel your soul begging for light, bro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what it is because like the stuff that you have written is very much detailed. And I think people, regardless of their background, they have these shut-off switches. You know what I'm saying? Which is why,
Right.
a lot of people in different communities of people of color, they're not able to progress ahead because they don't want to accept history for what actually happened. They want to accept the narrative, but they don't want to see the full scope of everything. So there's these
Oh,
switches.
yeah. This is old
Yeah.
school. You ain't gonna do no picky choosy up here.
Yeah.
You gonna eat everything in the gumbo. You gonna eat everything on the plate, nigga.
Yeah.
You're gonna accept and take every single bit of everything that happened in every single land.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna be none of that picky choosy bitch ass shit up here.
Yeah.
We don't
So
do
I
none of
think
that.
people don't want to do that because I'm gonna say something. I know you would definitely know what I'm talking about, but when I had went on my journey and I got back and I started, reviewing stuff I had did like 15 years ago, maybe even longer, with some of the authors I read that were popular in the quote unquote Black community. I could see holes in that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because like the research was never advanced. How can you be like in 2020 and nobody's advancing something that was written in 1900. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, my thing about the Black studies was there's no psychology, there's no sociology, there's no anthropology, there's no real biology, there's no real chemistry. If you want to go, I've yet to see a laboratory amongst anybody.
Yeah.
The only ones that are thorough in the areas of anthropology and Egyptology is your boy Anthony Browder. He gets to stand down, and then you got Francis Cress Wilson with psychology. I think Amos Wilson was also psychology. I haven't reviewed anything of Amos Wilson's work. And the whole thing about it was when I went into political sciences,
Mm-hmm.
and I got there by way of civil rights movement, Martin Luther King and
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so political sciences, I started studying the rhetoric, and I started, you know, the Ludwig. I started studying the Hegelianism, Marxism,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started reading what is it, J. Edgar Hoover, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
Masters
Yeah.
of the Sea.
Yeah.
And then I had studied all of that, and then I went, and this is after the Bible, and then I went to African tribal shit, and I was studying that for a while, and then, you know, I was talking to a lot. I started going into the YouTube thing and started getting into this whole conscious community, African community thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I started talking about political sciences, they didn't know nothing about that shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm, I see.
They didn't know nothing about no Hegelianism, or they didn't know nothing about Marxism. They didn't know anything about, you know, societal philosophy and shit like that. I'm like, okay, what the fuck, nigga? You know, but they was talking about some civil rights and what Martin Luther King said, but they wasn't listening about Martin Luther King mentioned all of these people, that he studied Stalin and Lenin and Hitler, and he said that shit. So that's what I went and did. You dig what I'm saying? So once I saw that, I said, oh, these niggas ain't serious.
No, it's like fast food wokeness, because what really threw me off when I had gotten away from that and started writing, I'm not going to say the certain names of the authors, you know what I'm saying, but these are authors that are passed on, so I don't want to disrespect them like that. But I was reading some of their works, and they'll be putting the word Black or African in every other sentence. And I'm like, yo, this is like popcorn, because for someone who has like a low self-esteem, it's like an easy way to be like, okay, that's me. It's almost hypnotic. You know what I'm saying? But
I think let me name it. You're talking about John Henry Clark and Joseph Ben, huh? Yeah. Now see, when I started reading and I went that route, the anthropological route of the studies, because that's who they are supposed to be. The stars told me don't mess with them. I was supposed to go check out Diep, Ivan Van Sertima, J.A. Rogers, and that's where I was at. Those cats back. You know?
And they'll do it in a pleasant way. Like they but they'll do it in a smooth way. But when I was like I think the book was Black Man Is Now, when I was reading it, and I was like, after going through a whole thing of philosophy and all this other stuff, I came back to read this, and I was like, okay, this is something to draw somebody in who may not know who they are. You know what I'm saying? So this is like a certain form of identity. Like, you know, we did this and we did that, but it's not really what's needed to move a person through society. But it is good information to know, but it's just not what's needed. You know what I'm saying? And then if, you know, because what happens is, like, people talk about this stuff, it becomes like a drug. They get high, and, you know, next thing you know, they need another high. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, well, there's also a lot of other stuff that happens with the cultural alignment. They come from bad families. They're seeking for a family. You have to understand, man, that all of this stuff has been mastered eons ago. And that's really made me, like, stuck my teeth at the whole Black study system. Because these cats mastered subjects 200, 300 years ago, and they're just now using them on you. Like all of this stuff with the coronavirus. They know how society is going to respond to it. They know what drugs to slip in at one time. They know what songs to slip in at one time. They know what doggy commercials to show you at what time, you know, during this whole little route, you see, because they've already been through this 20-fold, 100-fold. You see? So they know how to hunt the serial killers. They know about the keto shit. I mean, this shit, man, come on, B. But the whole thing is that they're Goyim. They are Goyim. Okay? They are animal. Okay? They are food for the gods. And that's all there is to it. You know, and they've chosen this. I mean, that's what made me drop the ball when I was studying and writing Real Nigga Etiquette, the Voodoo edition. Show me the fortified coast of Africa. There's none. It's been 500 years. We are wearing diamonds that come from Africa up here. The descendants of the African slaves in America are doing both illegal and legal acts to wear diamonds that we are getting from the African people who are enslaved in Africa right now.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
Does that feel good for the brother? Okay. How does that feel? Now, so you're an inadequate fuck is what you are.
Crazy.
Yeah, see, I don't have no problem with calling the ancestor an inadequate fuck. You're cutting the fucking umbilical cord. Fuck you. You know, because you're showing a lack of intelligence. You are in animal space that these motherfuckers are showing. Oh, I know. The people say, oh, this nigga crazy. Da, da, da. Yeah, you got a couple of little cities, but my nigga, it's been 500 fucking years.
Yeah.
How many branches of government do we have? How many branches of military do we have? How many fucking different fighter jets do we have in different branches of military? You can't even show me one country in Africa got a navy.
It's crazy.
There's not only one has an air force, and that's South Africa.
Yeah.
There is something wrong with the thinking structure.
Yeah, no one wants to get on that because it's just it's too far. It's too far.
Man, it is what it is. I deal with reality and keep moving, man. Hit the blank, keep moving. You know, whatever the case. You know what I'm saying? So I went over here to see how these cats can bang like they can. You know, why do we have, you know, the Ozzy Osbourne with the blood in the mouth? What is all of this? You know, why do we have the Marilyn Manson? You know, what is going on with the white folk? You know, so I'm going to study some serial killers and all the other rabid symbols they've been throwing in front of your face since you were children, and nobody has figured it out. That's another thing that made you suck my teeth, bro. Like, come on, bro. It doesn't take that long. You niggas been complaining about white people for 300 years and you don't know nothing about them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's the real stuff, man. I mean, it's sad in a way because there's so much meat. But the thing is, even when people study, Black people study, you know what I mean? That's why they can't get through those books. Like you said, you let someone who haven't went through volume 2 because it's sort of like the type of music, you know what I mean? Like people, they can't, if they're not used to real research and really looking for something. A lot of times people are looking for something that makes them feel good. You know what I'm saying? Instead of looking to see where they're at in the world first. I think I would want to know where I'm at in the world so I know where I need to move to, where I can go, this, that, and the other. But these people looking to feel good in isolation and in poverty. So they're looking for something to escape in a book. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times these books that these people, oh man, we were here before Columbus. And those things are great. You know what I'm saying? But in the present reality, the stuff that you're writing gives you reasons why those conditions exist, but also helps a person to survive in the present reality, knowing the cold truths, right? And some of them are warm too. But it's just that I just think that the perspectives in writing, your stuff is just more from a level that's definitely intrinsic psychologically and realistic to the matter of time. You know what I'm saying? I'm confident in myself as a man to know that I don't need to have someone blowing smoke up my ass to tell me what someone did who looked like me because I know the ancestral scale. You know what I'm saying? So it's like if someone goes back 14 generations, that's like 65,000 direct ancestors. I mean, you could be whatever you want to be. You know what I'm saying? Like when you look at that scale. So when you look at like, yeah, I was just writing about this. Like when people, they have this service called, because people ask me about this in DNA, like African ancestry or the other ancestral services. And I'm like, just go with the ancestral service, man, because no one can tell you what tribe you're from if you have 60,000 direct ancestors 400 years ago. How the fuck can someone say you come from this small tribe when you got 64,000?
Well, I mean, there is a little unique thing there with that. I mean,
yeah,
the tribes are different, and
yeah,
that's part of the attitude that you see today. Yeah, no, that's why there was no development in Africa.
Yeah.
It's because all the tribes had a snooty attitude of looking, nah, I'm fucking with them niggas over there. I ain't fucking with them niggas over there. Yeah. And that's why everybody got the attitude.
Yeah. And then on top of that, it's just like 60,000 people. First, there's no way one of those could be part of the same tribe, is what I mean. So, like, if a person was to go back there that far, that's not far ancestral-wise, but they will only be identifying with one person and making a dream out of that. but you be ignoring 59,000 other ancestors. You see what I'm saying? Some
Yeah.
of them could be different nationalities and all this
Oh,
other
let
kind
me
of
show you
crazy
something,
stuff.
brother.
Yeah.
One thing that I know by proof
Mm-hmm.
is, yes, royal blood is very real.
Yeah.
And the royalties, the royal families of this planet are that are on thrones are not the only ones.
Mm-hmm.
I'm of a royal bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
How would I know? Because I think and act like.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's the whole thing. There is a natural predisposition with this shit.
Yeah.
It's in your blood.
Yeah.
Royalty is already interwoven into your decision making.
Yeah.
If you're wearing mud cloth, you're not a royal.
Yeah.
If you have dreads, you're not a royal. Because the rules, the royalty that are ancient old, and guess what? Your blood would automatically align with that.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay?
That's definitely
And
true.
a royal isn't going to get a tattoo on the face.
Yeah.
Okay. Only individuals who have a historical line of mud huts do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hey, this is facts.
No, it is, because there's
These
something
are facts.
like in Judaism that they study is called genetic memory.
Right?
Yeah. And like you mentioned, in arenas that of certain studies of oppressed people, they don't even deal with that. They just think like, okay, you dealing with this, okay, you're still black. But they don't realize that no, genetic memory plays a huge role in who you are and your composition. So if you have, and I'm very well possible sure, like I'm sure that you have royal blood in your line. You know what I'm saying? So it's and that deals with the astuteness of your work. Just to be able to sit, dedicate, and put down something.
Oh yeah, this is royal.
Yeah. That's serious.
3-volume series,
like
600 pages
yeah.
a pop in 2020. That's royal.
That stuff is not. Because, I wouldn't lie, but that stuff is like, wow, you know what I mean? And just the intelligence behind it, because for those who don't know, the Kicked Out of Heaven series, I think when I had spoke with 720 Pryor in an interview, it was developed because he figured out that the medium between the ancient world and the modern world is the medieval world. So everything had to funnel through there to get, whatever. So through that, you kind of get to see a medium from what was before at that time, and then what came after based on that, which is very, intelligent. You know what I'm saying? Very intelligent. A lot of times, and why that's intelligent is because even for myself in certain studies, like I came through Chaldea, right? Chaldea, I know, like there's probably a few other people that know the level of Chaldea that I know. But a lot of times when people do go into Chaldea, into Egypt or ancient China or India, they'll just stay there and not see how those ideas were developed through time or how other civilizations branch those ideas into ways that are more modern. You see what I'm saying? And so that's a really a key thing about that work, you know what I'm saying, that you put together. And it's acclaimed, and it will continue to be acclaimed throughout time, because books, they don't have age. You know what I'm saying? They're consistent, eternally. So that's a huge thing. But we'll shut it down now, man. We got to talk more about this, man. I hope you guys out there listening, you felt the warmth of the conversation, and like that's what the OG dinner is about. It's not anything, no frills. It's just straight talk, and definitely dealing with some deep subjects. But I would say to the audience out there, go out there and get Kicked Out of Heaven Volume 1, Kicked Out of Heaven Volume 2, Ethereal Law. These are books that are really intense, and I'm going to have in the description Keenan Booker's books, where you can find them on Amazon, and his website. You can find out more information about him.
Yeah, y'all just go to KeenanBooker.com, go to StargatePublishing.com. You can find all 3 in color, over 1,000 pictures. Remember, you're doing pre-orders right now. Let me state that. The books are coming from out of the ocean. Poseidon is working on them as we speak. So let Poseidon print them all up. And then they're coming out of the ocean, okay? and then we're gonna have them available. So it might be about 6 to 8 weeks until
So
they're
just hang
fully
in there,
available.
get your pre-orders, man, because
Yeah,
that's
you got to
those
get your
books are,
pre-orders because I won't have a lot of copies.
yeah.
And they're all in color, over 1,000 pictures, and there's new pictures in there as well. I have
Wow,
updated it, so yeah,
that's
I
what's
updated
up.
it a little bit, but in about a year or so, I'm gonna be putting out the hardcovers. But this is the
Oh wow,
situation. Oh yeah, I'm
yeah.
gonna go ahead and delouse
Hmm.
the 310, put it all out, do it all over again, and put way more info in there. I got all
Yeah,
types of stuff, man. So
that's what's up, man. That's the best right there. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna shut this down. This is me, Sal Bay, aka Warlock Asylum, coming at you with another episode of the OG Den with Keenan Booker, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.